when my own daughter glared at me and spat out, "Find somewhere else to die. You're useless now." I felt my chest crack open. But I didn't fight. I did what I had done all my life. Obeyed. I folded 43 years of marriage into 2 worn suitcases and a small box of memories. 3 days after, I wasn't a bereaved widow. I was in the office of a lawyer, finding out that man I loved had led the longest, nastiest game of his life. But Victoria, my lovely, venomous daughter, was on the verge of learning that pawns don't remain pawns forever. Sometimes they rise and claim the board. If you're seeing this, keep in mind, this isn't a tragedy. This is how a widow ended up the woman with every trick up her sleeve. And believe me, my tale's got more turns than a snake pit. I was Margaret Sullivan 2 months ago, wife for 43 years, mother of one unbelievably ungrateful child. When Robert's heart failed at age 71, I was sure my own world had collapsed. But Victoria showed up at the funeral in her designer suit, voice sugary, her eyes like razors. "Mom, you can't stay in this house anymore. The stairs, the upkeep, the memories. You shouldn't be alone here." They sounded like words of worry, but I recognized it now for what it truly was. Cunning drama. Victoria was always Robert's pet, his golden girl, his princess. Robert idolized them both when they married Kevin, the investment banker. Me? I was the invisible shadow in the background. The cook, the cleaner, the wife. The pressure started after the funeral. She'd come with Kevin and pin me in at dinner, spreading out glossy catalogs for retirement homes like they were presents. "You'll love it there, Mom. Friends your age, activities, no responsibilities." What she meant was, no inheritance to divide, no mother in the way. Then came the Tuesday that shattered everything. I was still clinging to the guest room of my own home, unable to box up Robert's clothes. When Victoria arrived unannounced, Kevin stood beside her, holding 2 large suitcases. Her smile was rehearsed. "Mom, we've decided. Kevin's promotion requires us to move into town. This house is ideal for us." I blinked at her. "Move in. This is my home." That's when her mask cracked. The warmth faded. "No, Mother. As Dad's will states, it belongs to me. The house, the money, the investments, everything. I've been allowing you to stay here out of charity. But that charity is done." My stomach hit the floor. "Victoria, that can't be right. Your father would never, no mistake," she snapped. "Dad trusted me. He knew I'd defend his legacy. You were just the wife. Just the wife." 3 words that sliced 43 years to shreds. And then was the knife turn. Her voice, like stone. "Find somewhere else to die. You're useless now." I packed as she glanced at her watch, tapping her foot impatiently, as if I were keeping her from having brunch. Kevin walked with me to the door with the air of a valet disposing of refuse. "Margaret, you'll enjoy having your freedom again," he grumbled, avoiding eye contact with me. "No more maintenance or tax worries. No more home," he said. As their BMW pulled out, I gazed at the home I had built. Our home. 43 years of birthdays, Christmas mornings, and hospital vigils. Nothing now but property in my daughter's hands. The Sunset Inn was my new domain. A low-budget motel with flaking wallpaper, paper-thin towels, and the smell of mildew. Victoria thrust $200 into my palm, as if she were gratifying a maid. "This should pay for a couple of nights. There's a senior complex on Maple Street. Very reasonable. I'm positive they'll accept you. Reasonable. As she was getting $33 million, She didn't want me festering in a bargain basement nursing home. That evening, I lay on the creaky motel bed, looking up at the ceiling. My sorrow was vanished, seared away by something barbed. Robert had been stubborn, traditional, dismissive of my understanding about money, but cruel? Never. I recall the evening when he shared his will with me. Meticulous, neat, each detail, demystified. And I was sure about one thing. That was not the will he signed. Victoria believed she'd won. But she didn't know one thing about me. The pawn she discarded was already becoming a queen. The man who used to hold my hand during my mother's death, who never missed an anniversary, who showered me with roses every year, Robert Sullivan, would never have abandoned me with nothing. I knew it in my bones. The following morning, I perched on the edge of the creaking bed at the motel, staring blankly at the dusty curtains. As I logged onto the motel's sporadic Wi-Fi, my hands trembled as I entered the name Harrison Fitzgerald, Robert's lawyer, the man who'd made every significant choice of our lives. It took me $2.25 to ride downtown on a bus, valuable money I couldn't afford. But the 20 minutes was worth a pilgrimage. Harrison Fitzgerald sat in a wood-paneled room filled with leather-bound volumes, silver hair shining in the sunlight. My secretary had shown me in, and as soon as his eyes met mine, surprise turned to concern. "Margaret, my dear, I was expecting you. I phoned your home a number of times." Victoria indicated. "You were away?" "Away." That's what my daughter had said. My sorrow turned bitter with anger. "Mr. Fitzgerald, I want to know the truth about Robert's will." He scowled, leaning toward me. "Didn't Victoria show you your copy?" I gave her the original, along with a few duplicates, immediately following the reading. My gut fell. "The reading?" I shook my head. "I never knew there was one." Victoria said she inherited everything. For an instant, his gentle eyes turned to steel. He grasped a bulging folder. Fingers moved with sudden haste. "Margaret, that is impossible." He flipped the file over and produced a document familiar to me. Robert's signature. Precise, firm, witnessed, notarized. My husband's last truth. Harrison pushed his glasses up his nose, speaking low and measured as he read. "I, Robert James Sullivan, being sane and sound of body, do hereby leave to my loving wife, Margaret Ann Sullivan, our main home at 847 Oakwood Drive, along with all fixtures and personal belongings. I also leave her 70% of all money, investments, and accounts for an estimated total of $23 million. I gripped the arms of my chair in a daze. $23 million. The house. Practically everything. Harrison spoke on, his voice becoming more somber. To my daughter, Victoria Sullivan Hayes. $10 million to be in trust. Payments to commence upon her 45th birthday. Subject to her treatment of her mother after my death. I went cold. Subject to her treatment of me. Robert had known her for what she was. He had foreseen this very betrayal. "Mr. Fitzgerald," I whispered, quivering voice. Victoria said I had nothing. She took over my house. She gave me $200. She said to go find a senior facility. The face of the old lawyer turned red. His tone was quick now, angry. "Margaret, what she's done is not only cruel, it's criminal, fraud, elder abuse. She falsified documents or used an earlier draft. Your husband revised his will only 6 months ago because he was afraid exactly this, that your daughter's greed would overwhelm her. My universe shifted. Victoria had rolled her eyes at me for decades, dismissed my views, ridiculed my financial naivete while parading her trips and Kevin's major deals. Robert had witnessed it all. Harrison moved in closer, his eyes burning. There is more. The trust says if Victoria doesn't treat you with respect and dignity, her 10 million comes back to you. Which means, Margaret, I looked at him, barely breathing. You're telling me, he nodded. I'm telling you your daughter just lost everything. You are now the only beneficiary of $33 million, plus the house, plus all personal property. It was ironic almost to the point of poetry. Her greed for power had eaten up her inheritance. I whispered, what do I do now? For the first time since Robert died, I saw real warmth in Harrison's smile. Now, my dear, we call the police, then we call Victoria, and watch her world fall apart. Can she fight this? I asked. He smiled dryly. With what money? All accounts she believed she had control of are already frozen. All banks, all investments, all shut down pending investigation. By nightfall, Margaret, your daughter will discover she's not the board's queen. You are. I imagined her and Kevin in my house. Her house, she considered it. Most likely bickering over paint swatches, trying to decide how far my funds would go. They were unaware that within hours, the walls would collapse. Harrison dubbed it Operation Justice. His office became command central. Phone calls to the police, the banks, even a private detective. Detective Rodriguez arrived, flipping through the forged will with narrowed eyes. These aren't amateur scribbles. This is high-level forgery. Someone with connections. Someone who knew what they were doing. My voice was steady now, sharper than before. So Victoria didn't act alone. Rodriguez closed the folder with a snap. Almost certainly not. But don't worry, Mrs. Sullivan. We'll find out exactly who helped her. For the first time in weeks, I was feeling power coursing back through my veins. Victoria believed she'd left me for dead. She had no clue. She just dug her own grave. Before mid-afternoon, Operation Justice was already underway. Every bank account frozen. Every credit card declined. Even the utilities Victoria had efficiently switched into her name were shut off pending confirmation. At 3:47 p.m. on the nose, my phone flashed with her name. I spoke slowly. Hello, Victoria. Her voice was crisp, frantic. Mom, where are you? Something's amiss with the bank accounts. They're reporting Daddy's assets are frozen. I smiled into the receiver. I'm sitting in Harrison Fitzgerald's office. You remember him, don't you? Daddy's lawyer, the one who read the actual will to an empty room while you told him I was on the road. Heavy silence. Cracking dot. At last. Mom, I don't know what you think you found. I found out you're a liar and a thief. She gasped, her mask crumbling. I pushed on. I also found out your father was a much wiser man than both of us credited him with being. You just don't get it. I was doing this for your protection, she spluttered. You've never had anything to do with investments, with money, any of it. I was protecting you. My voice cut through hers. You forged documents. You committed fraud. And you kicked your 67-year-old mother out of her own house because you thought I was too dumb to realize what was going on. Her desperation seeped through. Mom, you're confused. You're grieving. Someone is taking advantage of you. I laughed, biting and sour. Victoria, sweetie, let me put this in a very clear manner. You did not only inherit nothing, but the 10 million your father left you is mine too. A small paragraph about treating me with dignity. Recall dignity? That's impossible, she spat. I looked at Detective Rodriguez, across the table from me, making notes. Detective Rodriguez is right here if you're interested in arguing impossibility, or maybe hashing out fraud charges instead. The quiet on the line was oppressive. I could practically hear her brain racing for an out. At last, "Mom, please, let's meet somewhere. We can reason this out." I let my voice turn to ice. "Oh, we'll meet at the courthouse when you're arraigned." Her breath hitched. "You wouldn't dare press charges against your own daughter." Something cold and final crystallized inside me. "Watch me." I hung up. Harrison's approving smile felt like a crown settling on my head. At 5:02, a text rang in. "Mom, don't do this. Consider the grandchildren." I passed the phone to Rodriguez, who smiled. "Classic manipulation technique. She's out of tricks." I responded in text. "I am considering them. They need to know what happens when you steal from relatives." 20 minutes later, Kevin phoned. His voice was slicked with the smoothness of practice. "Margaret, come on, we can work this out in private." Victoria did make some bad decisions, perhaps, but involving the police doesn't feel like it's necessary. I interrupted him. "Kevin, did you assist her in creating those false documents?" He stuttered. "That isn't. Margaret, you must see the pressure under which she was living. She was concerned about your sanity, about how well you'd be able to manage that much money." I waited until my silence choked him. Then, "So that's a yes?" "It wasn't mean. She thought she was doing you a favor, protecting me, by kicking me out of my own home and telling me to go somewhere and die." Kevin's voice broke. I didn't mean." "Here's what you're saying, Kevin. You and you're going to be both arrested. Federal fraud charges will be brought against you, and I'll be sitting in my house, seeing the whole thing go down." His bluster broke. "Margaret, please, be reasonable." I was reasonable for 43 years. It didn't work out so well for me, and then I hung up. Victoria quote S. Empire came crashing down at 8:30 p.m. Detective Rodriguez phoned to report she'd been arrested in the middle of dinner at Leonard, yelling false arrest. As Kevin watched helplessly, her lawyer proved to be Kevin's golfing friend, a guy who'd never handled a criminal case in his life. By morning, Kevin was handcuffed too. Forensic accountants had tracked the forgery to a printing firm connected with his company, the very company that had quietly manufactured phony investment papers. Previously, my son-in-law, it turned out, had a criminal CV longer than his golf handicap. That evening, I opened the front door to my home, the home I had maintained for 43 years, and entered the master bedroom. Victoria had already overrun the area with her mess. Designer attire, cosmetics strewn over Robert's dresser. The image made my chest constrict with anger. I shoveled it all into trash bags, pulled them to the porch, and left them there like the garbage they were. She could retrieve them when she posted bail. Being in bed for the first time in weeks, the house seemed different, not because Robert was absent, but because finally it belonged to me. For years, I'd modeled it to his requirements, his preferences, his ideal. Now I would recreate it in my likeness. At 12, Harrison phoned in news. Victoria's bail is $50,000. Since all of her accounts are frozen, she'll have to have a miracle to get it. Kevin's is $200,000. I took a deep breath and closed my eyes. Justice had started. Checkmate. The judge wasn't impressed. Kevin's bail was astronomical, and rumors of his background in securities fraud ripped through the courtroom like wildfire. My upstanding son-in-law had been under federal investigation for years, it seemed. I hadn't known. Not that I would have known, of course. They'd excluded me from all financial discussions. smiling blandly, while simplifying everything to the point of infantilization, as if I were a child, fumbling with pennies. Now, they were going to get a glimpse of just how much I knew. Harrison, I declared, my voice firm. I want the house changed. Victoria had people lined up, didn't she? I'll take some of the plans, but with my eye on it this time. He smiled. Terrific idea. It's your house now, Margaret. Make it yours. And oh, I would dot Victoria. Wanted to strip the kitchen, pull up Robert's hardwood floors, and defile his study by converting it into a wine cellar. I had other ideas. That study would be an art studio. The wine cellar, a library. My library. The phone rang. Unknown number. Mrs. Sullivan. Janet Cooper, Channel 7 News. We're reporting on a big elder fraud case. Your case. Would you be willing to tell us your story? The world was discovering. Victoria's impressive cracks were soon to hit the headlines. I understand you're interested, I said guardedly. But I'm not yet willing to go public. Certainly. But sharing your experience might enable other older people to identify the warning signs. It might save families from individuals who, well, from individuals like your daughter, her. Words resonated. How many women my age were quietly being drained by their own children? If I agreed, I asked, would I have control over how it's presented? Absolutely. A sit-down interview. You'd have approval over the final cut. I thought of Victoria, likely sitting in a cell right now, holding on to the hope that this was a misunderstanding she could talk her way out of with her charm. Miss Cooper, let me think about it. I finally said, I might have quite a story to tell. I hung up the phone, then filled a glass with the pricey wine Kevin once boasted of buying. Us for Christmas. Now, I sipped it in my own home, purchased with my own funds, while debating whether to embarrass my daughter on national TV. Life had developed an interesting twist. The next morning, at 7 a.m. on the dot, the doorbell rang. I looked through. The glass of Victoria, standing on the porch, looking shattered. Yesterday's outfit, empty eyes. 5 years' worth of aging overnight. She'd posted bail. I opened the door but didn't move aside. Mom, please. We need to talk. We talked yesterday. I replied icily. You said to find a place to die. I did. Right here. Her calm cracked. Red-rimmed eyes, shaking lips. I did wrong things. Horrible things. But I'm still your daughter. Are you? I asked, cocking my head. Because daughters don't forge wills and throw mothers out on the street. I wasn't stealing. I was... She struggled, grasping desperately for words. You were what, Victoria? I demanded. Keeping me safe? From myself? From money you believed I couldn't manage? Despite her world crumbling apart, she could not own up to the truth. She was still a victim, she thought. Let me tell you something, I whispered. 6 months before he passed away, your father confided in me that he was concerned about you, about your sense of entitlement, your preoccupation with money, and how you treated everyone you believed was below you. Her face went white. He never said that. He did. He told me you reminded him of his sister. Lovely, charming, and completely selfish. That's why he altered the will, Victoria. Because he knew what you'd do to me. That's a lie, she snarled. I pulled out my phone and hit play. Robert's voice filled the room. Calm, steady, decimating. If you're listening to this, Victoria, it means my doubts about your character were correct. Every word sliced through her shields like a scalpel. She was crying by the time I finished. Not her signature crocodile tears, but ragged, broken noises I'd never heard her make before. He hated me, she moaned. Not enough, I replied, cold but firm. He loved you enough to want you to show him wrong. You showed him right. Her smudged face came up, pleading. What now? Now, I told him. You reap the rewards, the fraud charges, the investigations, the headlines. And when Channel 7 broadcasts my interview, you'll face the one thing you've always feared most. Her lips quivered. What's that? The truth. Victoria's eyes blazed with desperation. Mom, please, consider the grandchildren. Consider Kevin's career. Consider what this will do to our entire family. I crossed my arms, unyielding. I am considering it. I'm considering how none of that ever occurred to you when you falsified documents and evicted me from my own home. She stood up slowly, her body slumping beneath the weight of defeat. She seemed instantly older, as if the years of lying had finally reached her. I know you'll never believe me, but I never intended it to come this far. I wanted the money, the security, the status. I wanted to never have to worry again. For once, there was no facade. Raw truth stood before me. I believe you, I replied, but wanting something does not justify tearing everyone around you apart to achieve it. Tears streamed down her face. What can I do to make this right? You may begin by acknowledging that it was wrong, not complex, not misinterpreted, wrong, unforgivably, irreversibly wrong. And then, I came in close, my voice slicing. You may meet the consequences with dignity, rather than scratching for sympathy. For the first time, she regarded me not as the timid, credulous mother she'd always outsmarted, but as the woman who'd outwitted her on her own terms. Her lips shook. I deserved it, didn't I? I didn't blink. Yes, Victoria. You absolutely did. 3 days passed and my doorbell rang. Kevin quote, S-Mom came like royalty. Flawless coiffed hair, layered in jewels, perfume, wafting behind her like a luxury mist. Elena Hayes possessed the sort of confidence that only 3 generations of inherited wealth could afford. Margaret, she declared, swanning into my living room as though it were hers. We must reason this out. I motioned to the couch, interested, to discover what delusion the Hayes family had built. Kevin had some bad decisions. She started smoothly, but filing charges would be vindictive. Vindictive? My own laugh was sour. Your son stole my legacy and put me out of my own house. Kevin was acting on Victoria's cue, she replied hastily. He didn't understand the whole picture. Incredulous. She was blaming my daughter for her son's cover-up. Mrs. Hayes, I replied icily. Forging court documents isn't flying a lead. It's federal fraud. She gestured with a manicured hand. Kevin's attorney thinks we can resolve this to everyone's advantage. You reclaim your house. Victoria suffers adequate consequences, and Kevin spares himself the shame of a trial. Adequate consequences? I echoed, like she ignored tea manners instead of a few felonies. Her lips smiled into a smooth smile. Kevin's family is willing to pay you, say, $2 million, in exchange for dropping the charges. I gazed at her. $2 million. To forgive the man who assisted in stealing $33 million from me. Margaret, be practical. Kevin has a career, children, a reputation to uphold. Jailing him does no one any good. It serves justice. I bit out. Her facade broke. Justice? You're going to ruin several families for cash you could never get your hands around. There it was. The same venom I'd suffered at the hands of Victoria. That condescending presumption that I was too tiny, too plain, to be important. We're finished. Here, I declared. Her face pinched. $5 million. Last offer. The figure was astronomical, but the integrity was firm. No. She stood up elegantly, serenity regained. Very well, but you might want to know. Kevin's attorneys have discovered some irregularities in your recently deceased husband's business. If those facts came out in the course of a trial, it could be most unfortunate. The threat was delivered, my heart was racing, but not with terror, with interest. What sort of irregularities? The sort, she replied smoothly, that could cause you to change your mind about who the real criminal in this family is. The moment she was gone, I phoned Harrison. They're bluffing, he replied. Whatever they believe they've discovered, it does not wipe out Victoria and Kevin's offences. But could it impact the case? I asked. Possibly. If they sully Robert's name sufficiently, a jury will be unsure. You need to be ready for that. I sat there with my thoughts wandering back more than 43 years of marriage. What secrets could be hidden beneath Robert's slick facade? Harrison, I said at last, I want the lot. Every transaction, every alliance, every whisper in Robert's business past. If they're going to sully his name, I'd rather learn the truth first. I spent that evening sitting in Robert's study, now my study, sorting through his fastidious records, folders categorized, receipts stored, everything in its place. But the more I dug, the weirder it became. Payments made to shell corporations, irreconcilable consulting fees, partnerships with companies that had no real existence. By midnight, my fingers were shaking. The life I thought I'd led was disintegrating before my eyes. The investigator, Harrison, had suggested, came the following morning. Carol Chen, piercing gaze, deliberate movements, the sort of woman who looked past exteriors immediately. She spent hours sifting through Robert's files, photographing papers, double-checking dates. When she finally raised her head, her face was stern. Mrs. Sullivan, she said, your husband was washing money, lots of it, millions. He had a very professional operation set up under the guise of his consulting business. The proof is huge. I stepped back. That can't be. Robert was the most ethical man I've ever met. I know, she said softly, but he was laundering money for organized crime. Those contracts, those payments, those are all connected to known criminal organizations. It's been going on at least 12 years, maybe more. 12 years. And while I hosted dinner parties and headed charity fundraisers, my husband had been laundering dirty money. Carol paused before continuing. And that's not all. The 10 million Robert left to Victoria, it came from laundered accounts. If the FBI traces the connections, they'll take it all. The house, the money, everything. I gazed at the papers covering the desk. My chest was empty. My world shattered. Everything I believed about my husband was a fabrication. The room spun, the periphery of my vision going grey. It all, Robert's empire, the house, the investments, rested on a thread. Unless what? I managed to ask. My throat raw. Carol squirmed. Unless Victoria and Kevin's lawyers already know, if they alert the FBI first, they can negotiate immunity in return for cooperation. A chill wave swept through me. My daughter and her husband were not mere thieves. They had a nuclear gun pointed at my head. What are my options? Legally, you can go to the FBI yourself. Confess voluntarily. You'd lose most of the money, but you might retain the house. If you remain silent, Victoria and Kevin will probably leak everything on their terms. You'd still lose everything and face charges for profiting from criminal conduct. Suddenly, Eleanor Hayes' smug confidence was understandable. They'd known all along. Carol, I whispered. How did they even discover this? Kevin's an investment banker. He'd recognize the patterns of laundering in a heartbeat. The question is, what does he intend to do with it? My phone vibrated. Victoria. Mom. Her voice was strained, panicked. We have to get together tonight. There are things you have to know about Daddy. Things that make everything different. I already know, Victoria. There was nothing but silence. Then a quick gasp. You know what? I know about the laundering, the shell companies, the criminal connections. It's all tainted. Everything your father left for us. Her voice changed at once from shock to strategy. Then you get it. Kevin's attorneys are in contact with the FBI. They're willing to renegotiate. You have the house. $5 million clean. Kevin gets immunity for cooperation. My charges vanish. We all walk away. It was genius in its sociopathic manner, converting my lofty moral ground into their bargaining chip. So let me get this straight, I said slowly. You're asking me to assist you in profiting from your crimes, by capitalizing on your father's crimes. I'm asking you to be realistic, she said icily. The other option is losing everything, and quite possibly going down yourself. I looked around Robert's study, the walls lined with expensive art, the desk polished like an altar to his success, all of it purchased with dirty money. For 43 years, I'd been living in a shrine to a lie. I need time. You don't have time, Mom. The FBI meeting is tomorrow. Kevin's lawyer needs your answer tonight. When I finally got off the phone, I sat in the darkness that surrounded me, surrounded by the proof of Robert's life of deceit. My husband had betrayed me for years. My daughter had learned from him, inherited not only his wealth, but also his skill at cheating. But she had done one thing wrong. She had underestimated me. I dialed the phone. Carol, arrange an appointment with the FBI. Tonight. FBI agent Sarah Martinez was just like a casting director's ideal. Crisp suit, even crisper eyes. Not susceptible to charm. She sat across from me in Harrison's conference room, writing down each word with mechanical detachment. Mrs. Sullivan, do you comprehend that by coming forward on your own initiative, you're acknowledging that you have profited from criminal proceeds? I comprehend, but I'd prefer to be truthful to you than let my daughter politicize it. I said it all out. Robert's hidden kingdom, Victoria's deceit, Kevin's forgery, their extortion masquerading as negotiation. Agent Martinez sat back, evaluating me. Your daughter thinks she can barter your husband's offenses to get released. That's what she thinks. She thinks I'll be scared into compliance. But I'm not scared anymore. Her eyebrow went up. Then what are you? Anger, I said, as solid as a rock. Raw crystallized anger. At my husband, at my daughter, at each superior smile that informed me I wasn't clever enough to understand what was going on. Agent Martinez smiled for the first time. Mrs. Sullivan, would you be willing to wear a wire? 3 hours passed, and I was sitting in my living room, a recorder strapped under my shirt. Thunder was pounding in my chest, but calm steel was masking my face. Precisely at 8 p.m., Victoria and Kevin walked in, dressed as if they were going to a boardroom, not a federal sting. Kevin had a black leather briefcase, probably full, of immunity arrangements and settlement documents. Mom, you look good as you've looked in weeks, said Victoria, pecking at my cheek with false affection. I feel good, I said calmly. Clarity does that for me. Kevin put down the briefcase and snapped it open with medical precision. Margaret, our attorneys have arranged this very beneficially. You retain the house, $5 million in clean money, and total immunity from any charges related to Robert's operations. I cocked my head. Clean assets. A curious phrase. Victoria gave Kevin a rapid, icy stare. Mom, The thing is now that we're all safe. The past remains buried, and we go on. Sat back in my chair, tone falsely level. What about Robert's $33 million he really left me? Victoria's eyes grew narrow. That money is tainted, Mom. Every single dollar is connected to Dad's crimes. $5 million clean is the best offer on the table. And what about you two? Getting out of this charitable arrangement. Kevin rested his elbows on his knees. Assurance oozing like oil. We all get closure. Victoria gets to walk away clean. My reputation is still intact. And the family can at last heal. I came close to laughing. Closure? You're labeling felony fraud a misunderstanding now. Kevin bristled. It was complicated. Then explain it to me, I said, my eyes meeting his. When did you first find out about Robert's little empire? Before you married my daughter, or only when you realized how much you could steal from me? They nervously glanced at each other. Margaret, that's not relevant, Kevin muttered. Ah, but it is. I insisted, my tone a blade. If you knew and were silent, you're accessories. If you just discovered during your scam, then you're mere incompetent. Crooks with bad luck. Victoria's calm facade slipped. Mom, what are you saying? I'm telling you this scheme of yours wasn't invented yesterday. The forged will, the judicious timing of the discovery, Kevin's associations with forgers. You've been working on this for years. That's ridiculous. Victoria spat. Is it? Agent? Martinez doesn't think so. The color drained from their faces. Kevin whispered. Agent. Martinez. FBI, I replied calmly. Very much interested in your little business. Fraud, elder abuse, extortion. Particularly the extortion of me using Robert's transgressions. Kevin leaped to his feet, grabbing for his briefcase. This interview is over. Really? I replied, with my smile cutting like a razor. It's just starting. On cue, Agent Martinez and 2 federal agents entered the room. In a flash, Kevin's briefcase and their phones were taken from them. Victoria Sullivan Hayes. Kevin Hayes. Agent Martinez declared. Her tone a gavel. You are being taken into custody for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, elder abuse, and attempted extortion of a federal witness. Victoria's eyes grew wide. Shock, cutting through her immaculate demeanor. Mom, how could you do this to your own family? Same method that you created fake documents and attempted to steal my existence, sweetheart. I stated firmly and icily, only my method is legal. With the agents cuffing them, Kevin made his final attempt. Margaret, you don't realize what you've gotten yourself into. There are others connected to Robert's enterprise who will not appreciate federal scrutiny. You've put yourself at risk. Agent Martinez interrupted mid-Miranda. Mr. Hayes, are you threatening a federal witness? Kevin shook his head violently. I'm warning her. That's reality. The reality, Martinez said without inflection, is that you just added witness intimidation to your charges. They were dragged out, shouting protests down the corridor. When the door closed, Agent Martinez sat back in her chair, her face solemn. Mrs. Sullivan, Kevin's warning isn't all an empty one. Your husband was connected to bad people. I got a shiver. How bad? The Torino crime family, she replied. Robert's consulting company was one of their best laundering fronts. They've been channeling money through legitimate companies for decades. I didn't recognize the name, but her expression made me think I should. So, I'm in actual danger. Potentially. But there's something else you need to know. Something that turns everything around. She put a fat file on the table. Evidence piled as high as bricks in a fortress. Your husband wasn't merely laundering money for the Torinos. He was working with us. Robert Sullivan was a federal informant, 12 years deep under, giving us intelligence while maintaining the appearance of keeping their system intact. The world reeled. My husband, an FBI informant, Martinez went on. It was so secretive. Even some of our own officers didn't know. The money he left behind. Legit. Payment for his assistance. Every penny legally yours. In fact, his efforts resulted in 47 arrests and more than $200 million in assets seized. I looked at her, my mind reeling. So all this time, she nodded. Robert passed away before we closed the case. We couldn't inform you earlier. And ironically, your daughter and son-in-law's conspiracy assisted us in proving your innocence. My breath caught. Victoria and Kevin believed they were taking advantage of Robert's trespasses. But they never knew he was leading a dual life. They had misjudged him. And me. They had been planning to blackmail me with evidence that would have cleared Robert's name. The irony was exquisite. So sharp, it almost hurt to laugh. Victoria had tried to strip me of everything twice. Once through fraud, and again through blackmail, built on half-truths. I turned to Agent Martinez. What happens now? She snapped the file shut with decisive authority. Now, you receive your inheritance. Your daughter and son-in-law have federal indictments hanging over their heads. And you, she leaned forward. You get to choose what sort of life you'd like to create, Margaret. The Torino Empire will be busy defending indictments to bother with you. We're conducting raids tomorrow in 3 states. Their empire is crumbling. I looked about my living room, the very same space where Victoria had once believed she'd got the better of me. Now it wasn't a place of embarrassment. It was where I'd been revitalized. Agent Martinez, I said cautiously, am I a bad person for feeling contentful about the arrest of Victoria? For the first time, the agent's face softened. Mrs. Sullivan, in my professional opinion, you're not terrible. You're a woman who refused to stay a victim. That isn't terrible. It's inspiring. 6 months later, the morning sun spilled across the gleaming countertops of my renovated kitchen, catching the steam rising from my coffee. For the first time in 43 years, every detail, the windows, the cabinets, even the paint color, was mine. Good morning, Margaret. Dr. Sarah Chen, Carol's sister, and my new financial advisor, entered the kitchen carrying a folder full of investment reports. Good morning, Sarah, I greeted, smiling. Quarterly review ready? The last 6 months had been a blur. Court appearances, media calls, and a change I never thought I'd undergo. Victoria and Kevin were both 18-month federal prison sentences. I'd meanwhile become some kind of icon, my name being spoken in elder advocacy communities. My tale torn apart on the talk shows. Your portfolio is coming along. Sarah replied, sitting down. The charitable fund is funded, and the scholarship fund already has the first group of recipients. I nodded. The Margaret Sullivan Foundation for Elder Protection had been my calling. $15 million devoted to assisting seniors in combating financial abuse and advocating for more stringent legislation. Out of Betrayal, something positive had emerged. Sarah looked at me cautiously. Any word on the documentary? Netflix. Official, I replied, still a bit dazed even now. Production begins next month. The Mother's Revenge, an American crime story. The fund goes directly to elder advocacy. Sarah paused, then pushed an envelope across the table. Victoria's written. Again. Through her attorney. She wants to apologize. To seek forgiveness. 17 letters. I'd read a few of the initial ones. Please masquerading as justification. Then desperate apologies. I ceased opening them after that. Certain wounds won't heal with paper and ink. Has my position altered, Sarah? I asked sarcastically. Not in our recent talks. But human beings do change. Even broken ones. I set down my coffee. 6 months ago, maybe I'd have felt an obligation. But that woman, the grieving widow, clinging to scraps of dignity, she's gone. Victoria destroyed more than money. She destroyed trust. That doesn't come back. Sarah studied me. And the grandchildren. She's requesting supervised visits. They'll make their own choices when they're grown. My relationship will be with them. Not filtered through her redemption arc, the doorbell. I watched from the window as a delivery truck came down the drive. Must be the studio furniture, I said. Robert quote S. Former den was my new refuge. Light, full of canvases and brushes. A haven where I again took up painting. Something I had put aside for decades, playing wife, mother, hostess. Margaret, I asked softly as I signed for the delivery, do you ever regret how it all turned out? The time in prison, the tabloids, the estrangement. I hesitated, considering. 6 months ago I was a ghost, a widow without a home, without funds, without voice. Now, I was a philanthropist. A public figure, a woman with purpose forged out of flames. I spun back around to her. Sarah, my daughter attempted to steal from me everything and leave me to die. My son-in-law fabricated deception and used blackmail on me. They told me who they were the instant they believed I was vulnerable. Family doesn't do this. DNA isn't family. Loyalty is. Protection is. Sarah closed her portfolio, pleased. I smiled weakly. And see where I am now. After I stopped letting them dictate my value, I learned who I was meant to be. Later, I entered my studio. Light poured through the new windows, reflecting on the new canvas. My most recent piece, a self-portrait of a woman bathed in light. Her face to the horizon, not a victim. Not a ghost of Robert. Not a mother for scraps of love, but a woman reborn. The woman standing back from the canvas was not the widow who had stowed her life away in 2 battered suitcases 6 months before. This woman glowed with strength, independent, unyielding. She wasn't broken anymore. She was reborn. She resembled someone who had discovered the ultimate truth about revenge. It's not about retaliating, it's about climbing higher, about being all the things your enemies never thought you could be. Outside, the sun set behind the trees I had planted with my own 2 hands. Roots into the earth that was at last, irrevocably mine, not inherited, not passed down, fought for, through intelligence, courage, and sheer will. Tomorrow, I would continue to build the life I had created, not the one that had been written for me. And if Victoria ever wished for a role in that life, it would require more than prison mail and empty regrets. She would have to change just as thoroughly as I had. Because this woman, the one depicted in the painting, no longer accepted bits and pieces of love, dignity, or freedom. She took it all.